my guest and I are gonna spill the tea. Spill the Chinese tea. You are going to really enjoy this conversation I've had with Nathalie Chandra Saunders, who is in Wales. I love Wales, such a beautiful, beautiful place, and is really passionate about tea. You're going to hear that. Speaks and translates Chinese text to English, mind blowing, and is really, really passionate also about people like me, which is older people, or we will call, say, a little bit older, the menopause people. Yay! We love that subject. I love that subject. So I'm so glad Natalie came on the show today. You are going to love this episode. Without further ado, let's do this. Welcome, Natalie, to the show today. I'm so excited that you agreed to come on the AcuPro Show. Everybody, please with me welcome Nathalie Chandra Saunders. And I said that right because I asked her before we started, do you say Saunders or Saunders? Because she is in beautiful UK, but specifically in one of my favorite parts, which is Wales. So welcome to the show, Natalie.
Thank you, Clara, and I'm so excited to be here. I'm feeling a little bit starstruck because I've followed you on social media for a really long time and I really admire all the work that you do. So I'm here with Clara. Wow, it's amazing. Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really pleased to be here.
You're so sweet. I appreciate that. You know, what I love about the podcast, we started in 2024. So it was something I've been wanting to do for a long time because I wanted to meet people like you. I wanted to meet other practitioners all over the world and see that, first of all, we're not alone and there are TCM lovers and TCM rock stars everywhere. And so the show has really allowed me to connect with many, many people. One of the person that I connected years ago, not live, not in real life, but through emails and social media, was Kath Berry. And so Kath Berry has been on the show in March, and I absolutely love her energy. And she's in Ibiza, as you know, because you guys know each other very well. And Kath was like, you should have Natalie on the show. She's amazing. Before we start, I love Wales. My husband's family is from Wales. So we went to Wales last year in 2024. I went to teach in the UK. And since I was teaching in the UK for a conference, I thought it's a step away from Wales. So we went to Snowdonia and we had the most amazing hikes. And then don't tell my TCM spleen this, but every day I had scones with clotted cream.
Yeah, I think it's allowed if you're in the UK for a short time.
Right? So you've been in Wales for a long time, obviously. So can you tell me how you went from pharmacy to wanting to learn TCM?
So actually, my interest in TCM came first. When I was about 14, I read a book that my mum had on her shelf, and I think I was off school sick one day and I was just flicking through this book and I thought it was so fascinating. Your toe is connected to your stomach and you can look at someone's tongue and you can tell this and you can tell that. That's really weird. This is what I want to do. And so I kind of had that thought for a long time, and from that point onwards, I really wanted to go into healthcare. And when I was studying my A-levels, which is like the final stage of senior school here in the UK, I was looking at different university courses and I saw there's this Chinese medicine course that I wanted to apply to at Middlesex University. But my school careers advisor, she talked me out of it and she talked me into applying for some different courses. So pharmacy was one of them. I really loved chemistry at school, so I was happy with that. And I thought, okay, and then maybe I will do this and then perhaps I will go to Chinese medicine later in life, like she suggested. So as it turned out, my life went in a different direction. I didn't go to university at all in the end. By the end of school, I was sick of studying and I thought, you know what, I just want to get a job and earn some money and not start my adult life with loads of debt. So I decided to not go to university and I went and got a job working in a pharmacy. So I trained to be a pharmacy technician and I really enjoyed it. And then I would notice people are coming in with these huge lists of medicines and half of these drugs are treating the side effects of the other drugs. And I thought, this is crazy. There has to be a better way. And that's when I decided it's time to go and finally study acupuncture. And I loved every minute.
Life has a way of showing us different places, different things, so we can eventually find our way where we're supposed to. The difference between where I'm in Canada and France, and you can tell me about the UK because I don't know, the pharmacists here have all the understanding of the drugs, they know the interaction, etc., obviously. But in France, the pharmacists have that, plus they have to know homeopathic remedy and herbal remedy. And in the pharmacy, you have options to take homeopathic remedy, herbal remedy, or drugs. And in North America, there's none of that. And so I just wanted to know if in the UK there was anything outside, but it seems like it's probably the same as Canada.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's pretty similar. Most pharmacists, they just know about the Western drugs. There are some who did some additional training, but they're in the minority, unfortunately.
I think it gives you an advantage as a practitioner because when someone comes in and they write down the medication they're taking, you know exactly what this medicine does, what it is for. I think it's so useful to have an understanding of both the drugs that patients are taking plus all your TCM knowledge. Do you feel that that was an advantage when you started practicing?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always felt really lucky to be able to speak in both languages. And I find that I'm always looking at things from both angles. My brain really wants to find connections between these two things all of the time. It's really interesting to me.
Obviously, I love TCM. It's one of my biggest passion, or I wouldn't do what I'm doing right now. But I like to know more. I was in India and I learned a lot about Ayurvedic medicine, and I love the similarity and differences between TCM and Ayurveda, or the way they look at everything. And then I like to know about vitamins and minerals. I like to know what's going on with any tools that I feel pulled towards. So the more knowledge we have, the more we can help patients, guide patients, educate patients, and use the tools we have to give them the best care. So I think it's great that you have both and then that you can pull from both to help your patients. So that's fantastic. Now, one other thing I read about you, because we don't know each other, you went to China and you lived in China and you learned Mandarin. Now, I know you're a translator. Do you translate Mandarin to English? Is that what you do mostly? Tell me a little about your trip to China, your experience in China. I would love to hear about that.
It was really amazing. I loved it, and it was such a rich experience, and it really helped me to get such a good understanding of Chinese medicine from a kind of Chinese perspective, because it's so rooted in Chinese culture. And I think to fully understand it, we really need to understand something about Chinese culture and also Chinese language, because they're also intertwined. I was translating research studies from Chinese into English. That was really amazing. It was a great opportunity. Now I am translating mainly Chinese medicine books. So when I was there, I picked up loads and loads of books. They sell books about Chinese medicine in the supermarket there for a few dollars. It's amazing. So I came back with a huge suitcase full of books, which I'm slowly working my way through and pulling out all the really interesting parts. And yeah, I translate those into my newsletters and they go into the articles on my website. And the first book that I wrote, The Chi of Tea, was also kind of largely inspired by a book that I picked up when I was in China, which was all about tea and yang sheng, which is something that I'm really passionate about too.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. I have a lot of people listening to the podcast who are students or new practitioners, but for the students that are listening, would you recommend they go to China, even for practitioners, in order to understand the medicine better, to deepen their understanding of TCM? Because obviously it helped you, but would you recommend and say, oh, you absolutely should go?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's such a great experience for anybody to have. When I first went there, I was on a scholarship, so I was actually lucky enough to be working in the hospital, shadowing the doctors there, and I was really kind of stunned by how differently they do things. It's a very, very different method of treating. So we were taught to use very few needles, very light needling technique. In China, it's the opposite. They use lots of needles and they really use a lot of manipulation. They want to feel that qi. If they're not feeling it, then it's not working. Yeah, it can sometimes look a little bit brutal from the outside. So that was quite shocking for me. But actually, people are getting really, really good results. And it's just really interesting to see how people embrace it as such a normal part of their life. There's nothing weird or alternative about it. People just go into the hospital and get the acupuncture, and the doctors there are also prescribing Western medication alongside herbs. It's really great to see. And I think the thing that I found most interesting actually was kind of seeing how aware people are of their diets and the kind of energetic properties of different foods. And people would just be saying, oh, you shouldn't eat that now, it's too heating, we're in the summer. And that's just something that people have a really innate understanding of there, which I think is completely lost over here in the West a lot of the time.
I have patients who are second generation Chinese, and their parents will say, "Oh, don't do this. This is too cold. Don't sit on the surface. It's too cold for you. You're going to have painful menstruation." And they're like, "Oh, my mom is always on me about the cold," because of course they were born in Canada, but their parents were from China, and they still bring that cultural piece. And I always say, well, your mom's right. Moms are always right. I went to school here in Canada for Chinese medicine, and all my teachers were from China. So when we learn the medicine here, we learn it a lot from people that practiced in China. And then we have to superpose this information into a Western world, because we are practicing in a Western world. In China, they put a lot more needles. They're much more stronger in their manipulation compared to us. We have to start gentle because the fear of needles, and start slow. So that contrast is very interesting too, because like you said, when someone practices in China, they don't have to explain to patients what we're doing. However, in the West, patients want to know what we're doing. You have to explain a lot more. And the hard part that I found students and new practitioners have is explaining to someone that, let's say they have, liver overacting on stomach, and that creates acid reflux when they're stressed because they have liver qi stagnation creating stomach heat. They'll say to patients, "Oh, you have liver qi stagnation." It's like, well, the patient doesn't know what that is. So they need to understand that they can't explain it that way. They have to explain in a way that the patient can really grasp the concept, which by saying every time you're stressed, puts a lot of pressure and acidity in your stomach, and that's the acid reflux, right? Instead of saying stomach heat, etc. But in order to cool that down, because that's a lot of energy coming up, then we can give you those foods that are cooling. So it's that piece that I think TCM students learn from Chinese culture, but they have a hard time translating that into the Western world and passing the information to their patients. So how did you navigate this when you came back to the UK in a way that you treated your patients? Or did you keep it the same way you did in China with lots of needles, lots of manipulation, and didn't adapt to the West?
Well, I've definitely always been a less is more kind of girl. So the style I trained in is classical 5-element acupuncture, which is very, very minimalistic. I've stuck with that. I think it's really important that patients feel relaxed and that they're able to enter a really nice parasympathetic state for the treatment to be able to work. And if they're in lots of pain, it's not going to happen. So I think, a few needles, very gentle, is always going to be the way for me. But it was really eye-opening to see how they do things in China. And in terms of explaining things to people, I think I've always done it more or less the same, because I have this kind of dualistic view from the kind of biomedical perspective, from the pharmacy background, and then the Chinese medicine. I've always explained it both ways, because I think that the language we use in Chinese medicine is so poetic and beautiful, because I feel like educating people is empowering people, and that's really important to let them take care of their own health.
I'm like you, the least amount of needle, the better. The more relaxed the patient is, the easier for them to heal and recover. So I'm with you on that one, 100%. Why did you want to write your book all about teas, all about Chinese medicine teas? Now, tell me about this book. Why did you want to share this with the community?
It's just such an important part of Chinese culture, and it's such an important part of Chinese medicine, I think, as well. It's a really gentle way that people can start working with different plants and herbs to remedy their health conditions. It's not as strong as if they're taking these powerful herbal formulas from a herbalist. So it's something that people can do for themselves at home, and it tastes good, which is something that Chinese medicine definitely does not. So it's a win-win. It's just something that I saw more and more while I was over there. So I had a friend who had a little tea shop, and she used to invite me over all the time for tea. So she would show me the traditional methods of brewing, like pu'er tea, which is a really beautiful, like rich, earthy black tea. It's fermented and it just has such a nice flavour. So I got really, really into the pu'er tea, came home with blocks and blocks of the stuff. I still have a tiny bit left in my kitchen, but it's nearly gone. I'm panicking slightly. But also, we're going to the shopping centres. They had these stalls where they were selling all these different flower teas and herbal teas. And the way they were laid out just looked so colourful and beautiful. You just couldn't help but be drawn to it. So every time I'd go to the shopping centre, I'd go to the stall and buy a different kind of herbal tea and take it home and experiment with blending different things together to see what tasted good. And then I started looking at the properties of the different herbs, and I just found it so interesting. And then I came across this book which is called Cha Dao Yang Sheng, so the way of tea for Yang Sheng, and I just found it really inspirational. And so I kind of, very heavily inspired by that, started to write my own book.
I love tea. I have ginger tea all the time. I have turmeric tea. Like, I love tea, especially in Canada because it gets cold. We always drink a lot of tea. I love green tea as well, and some black tea. I found that herbs were the hardest part of TCM just because everything was in Pinyin, everything was in Chinese, and you have to remember all those names that don't mean anything when you don't speak Mandarin. And I remember at first I was really kind of wanted pushing it away. It's like, well, I have to do it because it's part of my 5-year degree, but I don't like it, I don't like it, I don't like it. And that's how I went into it. And by the 3rd year, when I saw in clinic the results that the herbs were having, and when I started really grasping and understanding them better, I absolutely love that part of TCM. It is so effective and so beautiful. Once I allowed myself to be open to it and not go, this is crazy, I can't remember all this is not possible, then it was just a lot of fun. A lot of people know that I have 3 books. However, many don't that I also offer continuing education online courses. This is actually how I started AcuPro Academy, to support new practitioners. You can choose from TCM treatment for common mental disorders, fertility, pregnancy, thyroid disorders, but also specific ones like scalp acupuncture or cosmetic acupuncture online course. All these are pre-recorded, so you can watch them on your own time, and since you have access to them forever, you can revisit the information anytime you need. You will receive a certificate with your name on it after you pass a multiple choice quiz. And if you're truly not satisfied with any of my online courses, I offer a 7-day money-back guarantee, as I stand behind my products and truly want you to benefit from them. So go check them out on my website, acuproacademy.com, and click the TCM course tab on the menu bar, or check out the link in the show notes below. Now, earlier when we talked about your book and you said you looked at this book that you picked up that was about tea for young Shen, or nourishing life, right? Tell me about young Shen and nourishing life, because I know that's something you're really passionate about. And how can people educate their patient in practice about it?
It's something I'm really passionate about, and it's something, again, that came about while I was living in China. It's a term that I never came across before when I was studying in the UK, but in China it's everywhere. There's lots of yang sheng clinics almost, where people will go and they will get maybe massage, foot massage, gua sha massage, cupping, but not usually acupuncture. They'll have all the adjunct therapies, but not usually acupuncture, and also get education about, yang sheng, how to live healthily. So obviously tea is a really massive part of that tradition. Diet is another really important thing. Dietary therapy is just amazing. I'm really lucky to have just completed 10 weeks training with Averick Leggett, who is one of my all-time Chinese medicine heroes. So I was really pleased to have a chance to study with him, learning dietary therapy. And I just think it's so useful because everybody eats food every day. And by eating the right foods, we can have such a significant impact on our health. I just think it's incredible. And I think that it's kind of this thing of give a man a fish and he'll eat for the day, teach a man to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. So I think, yeah, we can give somebody acupuncture, we can prescribe them herbs, but really if we're able to educate them about what they should be doing to help themselves, that's going to be far more beneficial for them in the long run. So I'm now working with clients online, consulting them about yang sheng, and just sort of really helping them to understand their own constitutions and what they can be doing to best help themselves.
I absolutely think food is medicine. Zhongqi is the middle qi. The whole point is it's in the middle, meaning is at the center. It's at the center of everything. Our digestive system is at the center of our health. What's interesting to me, I'm all over social media. I have lots of videos on YouTube and everywhere, and I share a lot of information. Anytime I talk about Chinese medicine, nutrition, food therapy, any specific nutritive way of eating from the Chinese medicine perspective, those posts, those videos have the least amount of interaction, the least amount of view, the least amount of like, and the least amount of interest. And it blows my mind because I think it's so important, so critical to our patients' health, because you can do all the acupuncture in the world, but if they go home and all they eat is really processed food that is not nourishing the Shen, there's not young Shen, it's not nourishing their life. Why do students or practitioners, why are they not interested in this? Because I love anything that has to do with nutrition, Western and Eastern, because I have a background in Western nutrition. I don't understand why people are not interested in helping their patients. And then I started thinking about it and go, I know why. It's because most people think that their patients are not going to be compliant. So what's the point, kind of thing? I feel like maybe that's what they're thinking, because it's true that you can tell patients, okay, well, we're going to need to change the way we're eating. Here's my advice. But are they going to actually take action, follow the advice, and eat the way you were recommending for the better health? Because although we eat every day, I feel like that's the hardest thing for people to change because they've had habits for so long. So how do you convince your patients? So for people listening that have a hard time with their patients and their compliancy in changing their diet, tell me how you convince your patients so they actually take action.
Choose your battles carefully, and I think you have to keep it really simple. So it's really important to understand your patient and understand what they're capable of doing. So if somebody comes to you and they don't know how to cook, it's no good telling them you need to cook all these really complicated meals. You need to give them something simple that they can manage, maybe give them like 1 or 2 really easy recipes, like a soup or a stew or something, and really break it down for them, tell them exactly how they need to make it. If somebody is really busy and they have no time, it's no good telling them that they need to be cooking elaborate meals 3 times a day. So maybe you could ask them to batch cook at the weekend when they have time. They can make big pots of stews, curries, bolognese sauce, something like that. Freeze the extra portions, and then they always have quick and easy ready meals during the week. If you have someone who's struggling financially, it's no good telling them you need to eat organic food because they probably can't afford it. So you need to think about how you can work with them to make improvements that they can manage. So it's really a personal thing, I think. And if somebody loves food and they love cooking, that's great because it's probably going to be quite easy to get them to put these changes into place. But if somebody's really not interested in food, then it's just looking at what small changes you can make to make a bigger difference. So I find a lot of people, it's breakfast is the issue. So as we know in Chinese medicine, the spleen is most active first thing in the morning. We need to eat a good breakfast so that we get our metabolisms going and we have energy throughout the day. But in this culture, people are usually rushing in the morning, so they'll have a quick breakfast, like some sugary cereal or maybe a piece of toast or maybe nothing at all. So I think breakfast is the biggest battle sometimes. So I think if you can convince somebody to eat a good breakfast, then that's often a really, really good thing for them to be able to do. But yeah, it's very individual, and I think you do just have to look at the person and what they can manage and introduce small changes one at a time. Don't overload them with loads of different stuff because that's going to be overwhelming and they won't do any of it.
One step at a time. What I like to do is tell patients, okay, this week we're going to try to not have smoothies and replace this with warmer food. That's it. And then next week we'll change another thing. And then the week after that, so slowly introducing. When you talk about young Shen and what you like to do, which is to really help people with their lifestyle, I know because you also, with Kath Perry, contributed to a great book on menopause. I'm 57. I went through menopause like a letter in the mail. It was so smooth. I didn't have hot flashes, no night sweat. My period skipped, happened again 3 months later, and it was gone. Now, I contributed that to lifestyle, acupuncture, eating habits, sleeping well, exercising, good support, etc. So when you have someone coming and they're going through menopause and they feel like they're losing themselves, anxiety, insomnia, hot flashes, fatigue, and they have all those symptoms that they just don't know what to do with, and then a lot of conventional medicine doctor just don't have much solution with them. It's just a transition time. I can put you on HRT or hormone replacement therapy or just write it out, kind of thing. What are the advice you give patients that are coming with all this array of symptoms when they're going through this life change?
There's a couple of different things. So I think, first of all, it's like anything in TCM, we just have to understand the pattern, right? So first of all, we would do the in-depth consultation. I will ask them tons and tons of questions, some of them related to menopause, some of them not related to menopause, and just building a really good picture of what's going on in their body, what imbalances are there. And from there, we'll take a look at what they can do to help themselves. So oftentimes, physical activity is really, really important. Reducing stress levels, easier said than done, but if somebody can find a way to manage their stress, then that usually has an impact on everything. So I'm very often recommending to people things like breathing exercises, mindfulness. I'm a huge advocate of mindfulness. I have my own mental health struggles at various points in life, and mindfulness has been like a real lifesaver for me, so I recommend that to people all the time. And then looking again at their diet and seeing if there's any changes they can make. These are kind of the three basic things really that people can do to help themselves. So physical activity, stress levels, and diet.
I could see you really like mindfulness, and I connect to that. So when you said mindfulness, if a patient is there and then you say mindfulness is important, can you give me concrete example? Because I feel like some patients don't quite understand what mindfulness means. So how would you explain that to patients?
I think a lot of people are confused between mindfulness and meditation. They think that if they're being mindful, they have to be sitting, with their legs crossed and their eyes closed and doing some meditation. And people say, oh, but I can't do that. My mind's too busy. I can't clear my mind. It's not about that. So mindfulness, it's about paying attention on purpose, in the moment, without judgment. So you can do anything mindfully, you don't need to be sitting meditating. You could be doing the washing up. If you're paying attention to the feeling of the warm water and the smell of the dish soap, and you might be watching the bubbles popping in the basin, then you're washing up mindfully. You can be taking a walk mindfully if you're paying attention to the sounds and the smells, the feeling of your feet on the pavement. One of my very favourite things to do mindfully is making a cup of tea, listening to the kettle boil, pouring the water, watching the water change colour, and then holding the cup in between your hands, feeling the warmth, smelling the smell of the tea, and then kind of really building up to that first sip and just really noticing with all of your senses, being fully immersed in that moment. It really helps to bring you back into your body and take you out of your mind for a few minutes, which is really important, I think.
Last year, when I went to teach in the UK and I went to Wales, my husband went to Wales before me, and we met and we went hiking for a week. He went there before me. He went there to do a 10-day silent retreat with meditation. So he had never done this before. When he told me about this whole experience, one thing that was really hard for him is that when he eats like he's 4 years old and there's not going to be any more food, right? It takes 2 bites, it's gone. Or like our golden retriever, it takes 2 seconds, it's all gone, right? He doesn't mindfully eat. And so when he went to the silent retreat, it was completely vegan food, of course, and it was, very light food. They had breakfast, they had lunch, and then at 4 o'clock, they had a cookie, and that was their last meal of the day. And he didn't know that the first day. So at 4 o'clock, he got that cookie, and he ate it in literally 2 seconds. And then he was waiting for dinner, and they were like, no, we don't eat until breakfast tomorrow morning. And so he realized that the cookie now was his last meal of the day. So he started being very mindful, and he said it took him like 20 minutes to eat this cookie, looking at it, smelling it, taking a little bite, really being aware of what it feels like on the tongue and when it swallows. So that's also something that I like to tell patients. I'm from France, and we really enjoy food, and we sit and we enjoy our meal. We don't rush with the meal. We look at the colors, the smell, the texture in your mouth, and being mindful while you're eating as well, chewing enough. You don't swallow after one bite without chewing. You take the time to chew. So to me, mindfulness, like you said, is about anything you do. But because I love my food, I always attach it to eat slowly and really enjoy your food. So I love that you talk about the washing or preparing tea, because it always reminds me of Karate Kid when he was wax on and wax off. You just got to be mindful of what you're doing, right? So that's the image I had in my head.
Mindful eating is such a big thing, and it's so important for our digestive health as well.
And again, we go back to nutrition, right? Because when you nourish your body, you nourish your mind. I really appreciate you coming today. If you had any last thoughts on what TCM can do for menopausal women, for young Shen, or for nourishing life, what would you recommend?
We need to slow down. I think this is so important. If we can just take more time about the things that we're doing, be more mindful about them, be more present in our everyday lives, I think that can really benefit a lot of us. And just keeping things simple as well. We don't need to overcomplicate things. Really all comes back down to looking at what food we're putting into our bodies, making sure that we're breathing properly, making sure that we're doing enough physical activity, and trying to manage our stress levels in whatever way works for us. It sounds a little bit boring to say these things because it's the things that we hear over and over again, but that's because it really works.
I think you should write a book about nourishing life, Yangshen, the Chinese medicine way of life, with teas and recommendation. What do you think?
It's in the pipeline.
And I didn't even know that. Well, here you go.
It's in the very early stages. So currently I'm writing a newsletter which people can sign up for through my website. And it comes out every 2 weeks, and it's based on the 24 solar terms of the ancient Chinese agricultural calendar. And each one comes with various health tips to do with what we should be doing at different times of the year. And so that is what I will say for now. But this is going to be the basis of the book when it finally gets finished.
That's awesome. We'll have the link to your newsletter below so people can sign up and start getting all the benefit, because I think sometimes we go to Chinese medicine school and we forget the basics, or sometimes we are not taught all the lifestyle recommendation. We are taught specific things. It's really good to be aware that there's a way of thinking that comes from Chinese medicine. What worked for thousands of years as a preventative health, as a lifestyle, will work forever. It's not going to go away, right? I really appreciate you coming in today and sharing your journey.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure chatting to you.
Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I truly hope you benefited from this episode, and I would love for you to share it with a friend that may benefit from it as well. Follow the show, leave a review, and if you want more, go to my website, acuproacademy.com. I have tons of resources there with treatment protocols, case studies, free courses, and so much more. And connect with me on all social media at AcuPro Academy. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, Pinterest, and LinkedIn and TikTok. And no matter what, keep rocking it using TCM. Please listen to the disclaimer, because the AcuPro Show podcast and material shared through AcuPro Academy, which is a subdivision of Natural Health Sense Incorporated, are designed solely for educational and entertainment purposes. The utilization of information from this podcast or any associated material is at the user's discretion and risk. This content is not meant to replace the guidance of an acupuncturist, Chinese medicine doctor, medical doctor, physician, or any qualified professional, nor is it a substitute for proper diagnosis or treatment. Users are strongly advised not to ignore or postpone seeking medical advice for any existing medical condition with their healthcare professional regarding any health concerns.